You always said I was just a housewife. That was your first mistake. I wasn't supposed to be home until tomorrow evening. The Women's Business Symposium in Chicago had 2 more sessions scheduled, but something in my gut told me to take an earlier flight. 16 years of marriage teaches you to trust those instincts. The penthouse was quiet when I entered, but not empty quiet. It was guilty quiet. A woman's designer handbag sat on the marble entrance table, not mine. A trail of clothing led to our bedroom. His tie, her blouse, his shirt. I didn't rush. I didn't make a sound. I just followed the breadcrumbs of betrayal down our hallway. My name is Virginia, and this was the moment I'd been waiting for. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Their moans carried through the gap, accompanied by the rhythmic creaking of our $12,000 handcrafted bed, the one Aaron insisted we needed to reflect our status. I pushed the door open. Oh my God! Cassandra scrambled to cover herself with our Egyptian cotton sheets. Her perfectly highlighted hair was a mess, her red lipstick smeared. Aaron didn't even bother moving. He just propped himself up on his elbows, wearing that same smirk he used when closing business deals. You're home early. Obviously. I remained in the doorway, my weekend bag still in hand. This isn't... Cassandra started, but Aaron cut her off with a wave. Don't bother, Cass. It's time anyway. He reached for his discarded pants, pulled out a thick envelope and tossed it onto the floor at my feet. Those are divorce papers. My lawyer drew them up last week. I picked up the envelope. Last week? Let's not pretend you didn't see this coming, Virginia. He stood up, naked and unashamed. The company's growing. We need younger energy, fresh perspectives. Cassandra understands my vision. I'm sure she understands lots of things. I've been generous in the settlement, he continued, pulling on his pants. The apartment in Brooklyn, a fair monthly allowance. You'll be comfortable. The company shares? I asked quietly. He laughed. You can't be serious. You're just a housewife. What do you know about running a luxury real estate empire? I built this company. Cassandra had managed to slip on her dress and was trying to fix her makeup in our mirror. My mirror. She caught my eye and had the audacity to look sympathetic. Sign the papers, Aaron said. Don't make this difficult. You know I always win. I walked to his desk, imported Italian leather because heaven forbid anything in this penthouse be domestic, and borrowed his Mont Blanc pen, the one I'd given him for our 10th anniversary. You're being very reasonable about this, he said, watching me sign. I looked up at him. You taught me well, Aaron. Always keep your emotions out of business decisions. Exactly. He smiled, pleased with himself. I knew you'd understand. I handed him back the envelope and his pen. I understand perfectly. I'll have my assistant pack up your things, Cassandra offered, trying to sound professional, as if she hadn't just been screwing my husband in my bed. That won't be necessary. I picked up my weekend bag. I have everything I need. Aaron was already on his phone, probably texting his lawyer. The board meeting is on Thursday. We'll announce the changes then. Changes? I asked. Your resignation from the board, of course. Can't have my ex-wife hanging around, making things awkward. He didn't even look up from his screen. Cassandra will be taking your seat. Of course she will. I walked to the door, then turned back. Aaron? You'll get exactly what you deserve. He finally looked up, confusion flickering across his face. But I was already walking away, my heels clicking against the marble floors he'd insisted on installing last year. In the elevator, I pulled out my phone and sent 2 texts. To Nicholas. It's time. Execute everything as planned. To Natalia. The bastard took the bait. Meeting tomorrow? The responses came immediately. Documents ready. He won't know what hit him. Bringing champagne. Your place or mine? I smiled as the elevator doors opened to the lobby. The doorman tipped his hat, concern in his eyes. Everything all right, Mrs. Stevenson? Better than all right, George. I handed him a generous tip. But you might want to update your records. It's Ms. Meyer now. The autumn air hit my face as I stepped onto Park Avenue. Behind me, 40 stories up, my husband thought he'd just won everything. That was his second mistake. Daddy never trusted women with money, I told Natalia as we sat in her private office, 24 hours after I'd caught Aaron with his assistant. That's why he left everything in a blind trust. She poured more champagne into my glass. And that's exactly why you're about to own your husband's company. I pulled out the latest ownership documents Nicholas had couriered over. Sign here, I said, sliding them across her desk. As the final witness. You know, Natalia said, signing with a flourish, when you first came to me 5 years ago asking about shell companies and anonymous stock purchases, I thought you were paranoid. You weren't wrong. I took a long sip. I just didn't know which betrayal would come first. The memory of that initial meeting with my father's estate lawyer flooded back. I was 28, newly married, and furious. Your father believed women become emotional with direct control of assets, the lawyer had explained, adjusting his bow tie. The trust will distribute funds quarterly, managed by our firm. I'd stayed quiet, letting him ramble about, protecting me from myself. Just like I'd stayed quiet last night with Aaron. Men never expect silence from an angry woman. They mistake it for acceptance. That same day, I'd called Nicholas, my cousin who'd recently made partner at his law firm. I need to set up some holding companies, completely anonymous. Can you help? Does Aaron know about the trust? He'd asked. No, and he never will. Over the next decade, I built my web carefully. When Tom, Aaron's business partner, went through his divorce and needed quick cash, I was there, through 3 different shell companies, buying chunks of shares at discount prices. When board members retired, my offshore entities acquired their stock. Patient, methodical, silent. Earth to Virginia? Natalia waved her hand in front of my face. Where'd you go? Sorry, just thinking about how long this game has been. My phone buzzed. Nicholas, everything's filed, he said when I answered. As of this morning, your various entities officially control 52% of voting shares. Aaron's name is on 30%, and the rest is scattered among minor stockholders. And the timing? Perfect. The ownership documents will hit the board's legal team about an hour into Thursday's meeting, right after Aaron tries to force your resignation. Natalia raised her glass. To karma. To patience, I countered. My phone buzzed again. Lucy. My heart clenched. Mom, Dad says I should stay at his new place tonight. Is that okay? I gripped the phone tighter. Of course, sweetie, whatever you want. He says you're being weird about the divorce, that you might try to make things difficult. Did he? I kept my voice neutral. And what do you think? I think maybe he's right. You never supported his vision for the company. You were always so quiet at the parties, so invisible. If she only knew how strategic that invisibility had been. Lucy, honey, do what feels right to you. Thanks, Mom. I'll get some clothes from home tomorrow when you're at yoga. The line went dead. She'll understand eventually, Natalia said softly. Will she? I stood up, walking to her office window. Aaron's been positioning himself as the victim for months, taking her to board meetings, introducing her to investors. See how your mother holds us back? He'd say. See how she doesn't understand business? And on Thursday she'll see the truth. I shook my head. She'll see her mother destroy her father. There's no winning here. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Tom. Virginia, please be reasonable about Thursday. Aaron built this company. Take the settlement. Don't make us remove you forcefully. I showed Natalia the message. Oh, Tom, she laughed. If he only knew he sold you the shares that will end Aaron's reign. Nobody knows, I said quietly. That's the point. I gathered my things, including the freshly signed documents. I should go. Need to get these to Nicholas. Virginia? Natalia called as I reached the door. Are you ready for this? Really ready? I thought about Aaron's smirk in our bedroom, About Lucy's voice, already taking his side. About a decade of being the quiet wife, the silent partner, the invisible woman. I've been ready since the day my father decided I couldn't handle my own inheritance. I straightened my jacket. Men like them, they never see it coming. That's their weakness. And your strength? I learned to wait. I smiled. And I learned to count. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click. In 48 hours, Aaron would learn exactly how well his quiet wife could count, right down to the last share. I was in the kitchen when Lucy came home to pack her things. She didn't know I was there. I'd canceled yoga, but let her think I was gone. Sometimes you learn more from what people do when they think you're not watching. "This is my room now," I heard Cassandra say upstairs. "Your father thought it would be better if I moved in right away, help with the transition." My coffee cup trembled in my hand. That woman was in my house, helping my daughter pack. "It's so much nicer than my old apartment," Cassandra continued. "Your mom has great taste, I'll give her that. Though some of these curtains need updating." "Mom never really cared about decorating," Lucy replied. "Dad always said she was too practical." "Well, that's going to change. Wait until you see what I have planned for the living room." I set my cup down silently and moved closer to the stairs. "Did she really just give up?" Lucy asked. "When Dad told her about the divorce?" "Some women know when they're outmatched," Cassandra said. "No offense, but your mom's not exactly corporate material. The board meetings were always so awkward with her there." "I noticed that too, she barely spoke." "Your father needs someone who understands his vision, who can be a real partner. In business and in life." The sound of my closet doors sliding open made me flinch. "These designer pieces are wasted on her," Cassandra said. "Mind if I keep some? We're about the same size." "I guess they're Dad's to give away now, right?" I pressed my hand against my mouth to keep from screaming. My daughter was helping this woman divide up my life like a yard sale. "Exactly. The settlement your mom signed gives him everything business-related, including assets purchased with company money." Cassandra's voice dripped with satisfaction. "Which, let's be honest, is everything in this penthouse." My phone vibrated. A text from Natalia. "Final verification complete. You now officially own 52% through the trusts. Ready for tomorrow?" I typed back. Listening to my replacement raid my closet, more ready than ever. "Lucy!" Cassandra called out. "Your father's sending a car in 20 minutes. We should hurry." "Coming! Just grabbing my laptop." I heard footsteps approaching the stairs and quickly slipped into the pantry, leaving the door cracked. Lucy passed by, then stopped. She turned back toward my kitchen, her eyes scanning the space. For a moment, she looked so young, so uncertain. Then Cassandra called again, and the moment passed. "Did you check your mom's jewelry box?" Cassandra asked when Lucy reached the top of the stairs. "Dad said not to touch that stuff yet. Legal reasons." Smart man. Always thinking ahead. The next 15 minutes were torture, listening to them pack, laugh, make plans for redecorating my home. Finally, I heard the elevator chime. "Miss Lucy, the car is here," George, our doorman, announced over the intercom. "Coming," Lucy called back. "Just need to set the alarm." I waited until I heard the elevator doors close before emerging from the pantry. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and dialed Natalia. "I need a drink," I said when she answered. "On my way. What happened?" "Cassandra's already moved in. She's helping Lucy pack. I swallowed hard. "They're going through my things like I'm already gone." "Perfect," Natalia said. "Perfect. My daughter is choosing them over me." "No, it's perfect because they're overconfident. Aaron's showing his hand too early. Did they take anything important?" I walked upstairs to check my closet. "Some clothes. They talked about jewelry, but Lucy said Aaron warned them off. Because he knows the jewelry predates the marriage. Harder to claim as company assets." Natalia paused. "How are you holding up?" I looked at my reflection in the bedroom mirror. "I'm angry. Angrier than I've ever been." "Good. Channel it. Tomorrow's the performance of your life. She thinks I'm weak, Natalia. My own daughter thinks I'm some pathetic corporate wife who couldn't keep up with her father. Let her think that, for now. I walked to Lucy's room, where scattered clothes and memories lay abandoned in her haste to start her new life. What if... I picked up her childhood teddy bear, left behind as too childish for her new sophisticated life. What if she never forgives me for what I'm about to do to her father? Then she'll have learned the same lesson you did, that appearances deceive, and the quiet ones are often the most dangerous. I set the bear on Lucy's pillow. Tomorrow, then. Tomorrow, Natalia agreed. And Virginia? Wear that white Hugo Boss suit. The one Aaron hates? Exactly. Let's show them what corporate material really looks like. I smiled, closing Lucy's door. Bring tequila when you come over. We have a war to plan. The pre-meeting was exactly what I expected. A room full of men trying to let me down gently. Tom paced the conference room while Leighton, the board chairman, sat at the head of the table looking concerned. Virginia, we value your contributions, Leighton said, straightening his tie. But the board feels it's best if you step down voluntarily. I sat quietly, hands folded in my lap, wearing the white suit that made Aaron's jaw clench. Aaron's prepared to be generous, Tom added. Very generous. How generous? I asked softly. Full ownership of the Brooklyn property, a seat on our charitable foundation board, and a significant cash settlement. Tom slid a document across the table. Plus, a monthly stipend that would make most divorcees envious. I glanced at the number and fought back a smile. It was less than what I spent on coffee each month. And my board seat? Leighton cleared his throat. Well, about that. Given the circumstances. The door burst open. Aaron strode in, Cassandra trailing behind with her tablet. Is she being difficult? Aaron demanded. I told you she'd be difficult. We're having a civilized discussion, Leighton said. There's nothing to discuss. Aaron slammed his hands on the table. The company needs young blood, fresh ideas. Cassandra has an MBA from Stanford, Cassandra chimed in. Top of my class. I tilted my head. Interesting. I don't recall Stanford's business school accepting undergraduate degrees from community colleges. The room went silent. Cassandra's face flushed. How did you... she started. Board members get access to all employee files, I said quietly. Even executive assistants. That's enough, Aaron snapped. Your petty attempts to undermine my choices. Your choices? I interrupted. Like the choice to misstate earnings on the Jensen development? Tom's head whipped around. What's she talking about, Aaron? Nothing. She's being hysterical. Aaron straightened his jacket. This is exactly why we need her gone. Women-led emotions cloud their judgment. I stood slowly. Leighton, before tomorrow's meeting, you might want to review the Q3 financials, particularly the offshore holding account transfers. Sit down, Aaron hissed. Make me. He took a step toward me, then caught himself. But everyone had seen it. That flash of rage, that moment of lost control. Mrs. Stevenson, Leighton said carefully, are you suggesting there are irregularities in our financials? I'm not suggesting anything. I picked up my purse. I'm simply advising our board chairman to do his due diligence. Isn't that what good corporate governance requires? You vindictive bitch, Cassandra whispered. Language, dear. It's unbecoming of a future executive. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Aaron, the Jensen development papers are no longer in the safe at home, just in case you were thinking of doing some late-night cleanup. The color drained from his face. Tom grabbed Aaron's arm. What papers? What did you do? I left them arguing, their voices carrying down the hallway. My phone buzzed as I reached the elevator. How'd it go? Nicholas asked. Exactly as expected. Aaron lost his temper, Cassandra showed her inexperience, and I dropped the Jensen hint. Did they take the bait? Tom looked ready to vomit. Leighton's probably calling our auditors right now. Perfect timing. The ownership documents will hit the legal department in 12 hours. By then, they'll be too busy with damage control to see it coming. The elevator opened. Lucy stood inside, tears in her eyes. Mom? My heart stopped. Lucy, how long have you been— Long enough. She stepped out as I stepped in. Dad said you were trying to destroy him. I didn't believe— Lucy, wait. But she was already walking away, pulling out her phone, probably to warn her father. I let the elevator doors close and pressed the lobby button. My hands were shaking as I texted Natalia. Lucy overheard everything. She's warning him. The response came quickly. Doesn't matter. Let him scramble. The papers are filed, the shares are yours. All he can do now is watch it burn. Another text from Nicholas. Everything's still set for 9 a.m.? Yes, I replied. Tell security to be ready. Aaron won't take this quietly. The elevator reached the lobby. As I walked out, I heard Tom's voice echo from the stairwell. Aaron, get back here. What else are you hiding? I smiled at the security guard. Jack, tomorrow morning's meeting might get loud. Be prepared. He nodded, used to Aaron's temper. Yes, ma'am. Though if you don't mind me saying, you seem awful calm about all this. That's because tomorrow isn't about anger, Jack. I straightened my white suit. It's about mathematics, and I'm very, very good at counting. He's been calling all night, Nicholas said, spreading papers across my dining room table. Every board member, major shareholder, even retired partners. He's desperate. I poured us both coffee. It was 6 a.m., 3 hours before the board meeting that would change everything. What's he offering? I asked. Double the divorce settlement. Triple. He even offered to step down as CEO if you'll sell your shares back to him. Nicholas smiled. Of course, he doesn't know they're your shares yet. He's just calling everyone. My phone lit up. Lucy's face appeared on the screen. Mom, can we talk? I put it on speaker. Of course, honey. Dad's really upset. He says you're trying to frame him for fraud, that you planted fake documents. Nicholas raised an eyebrow. I shook my head. The Jensen development papers aren't fake, Lucy. Ask him about the offshore accounts. He says you're lying, that you're jealous of Cassandra, that you're trying to hurt him because he found happiness with someone else. Is that what you believe? Silence. Lucy, I don't know what to believe anymore. Her voice cracked. Cassandra's crying. Dad's been on the phone all night. He keeps saying our family will be ruined if you don't stop. Our family was ruined the moment he chose her over us. That's not fair. She understands him. She supports his vision. You were always so quiet? I finished for her. Patient? Tell me, Lucy, did your father ever mention where the initial funding for his company came from? More silence. Ask him about your grandfather's trust fund, the one he convinced me to invest in his startup. Ask him why my name isn't on any of the founding documents despite my money building his empire. You're lying, Lucy whispered, but I heard the doubt. Check his office, third drawer on the left behind the false panel. The original investment documents are there. I saw him hide them last year. The line went dead. Nicholas looked up from his papers. You knew she'd warn him about the Jensen documents. Of course. That's why I mentioned them specifically. He'll be so busy trying to hide that fraud, he won't see the ownership revelation coming. My phone buzzed again. Natalia. Turn on CNBC, she said without greeting. Now. I grabbed the remote. Aaron's face filled the screen, standing outside our corporate headquarters. These allegations are baseless, he was saying. My wife is understandably emotional about our separation, but to suggest there are irregularities in our financials is absurd. The board has full confidence in my leadership. Arrogant bastard, Nicholas muttered. Sources say there's an emergency board meeting this morning, the reporter pressed. Is your position as CEO under review? Aaron laughed. I founded this company. I built it from nothing. The board meeting is a formality to address some routine governance matters. I turned off the TV. He's getting sloppy, making public statements without board approval. Virginia, Nicholas said quietly, there's something else you should see. He slid a document across the table. Fresh intel from our private investigator. Cassandra's pregnant. The coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. 8 weeks, Nicholas continued. She told Aaron yesterday. I stood up, coffee soaking into my shoes. That's why he's fighting so hard. Not just for the company, he's fighting for his new family. Are you okay? I walked to the window, looking out over the city that had watched my marriage crumble. Did I ever tell you about my first board meeting? Aaron had me sit in the back like an observer. When I tried to speak, he cut me off, made a joke about letting the little woman have her say. Everyone laughed. Virginia. I was carrying Lucy then, 6 months pregnant. He didn't want me there either, said pregnancy made women too emotional for business. I turned back to Nicholas. Well, let's see how emotional he gets when I take everything. The ownership documents have been delivered to legal. They're reviewing them now. Nicholas checked his watch. 1 hour until the meeting. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Lucy. Found the documents, the investment papers, Dad's signature on your trust fund transfer. Mom, I'm so sorry. I showed Nicholas the message. Now what? He asked. Now we finish this. I walked to my closet, pulled out my armor, the white Hugo Boss suit, red-soled Louboutins, my grandmother's pearls. Call security, tell them to be ready. When Aaron realizes he's lost everything, he won't go quietly. And Cassandra? The baby? I fastened the pearl necklace, meeting my own eyes in the mirror. She chose her path. Now she'll walk it without my company's resources. You've changed, Nicholas said softly. No. I grabbed my briefcase full of documentation. I've just stopped pretending to be what they wanted me to be. The morning sun hit the pearls around my neck, making them gleam like armor. In 90 minutes, I would walk into that boardroom and take back everything that was rightfully mine. Let them try to stop me. The boardroom was a battlefield before I even arrived. Aaron stood at the head of the table, red-faced and gesturing wildly. Tom sat with his head in his hands. Cassandra hovered by the coffee station, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. Ah, Virginia, Aaron said as I entered. So kind of you to join us before your formal removal. I took my usual seat, noting the security guards positioned discreetly by both doors. Nicholas sat quietly in the corner, laptop open. Shall we begin? Leighton asked, trying to restore order. Yes, let's begin. Aaron clicked his presentation remote. As you can see, our Q3 numbers are strong, despite my wife's desperate attempts to suggest otherwise. Those numbers are false, I said quietly. Here we go. Aaron rolled his eyes. More baseless accusations from a woman who can't accept reality. The Jensen development numbers, Tom interrupted. Virginia might have a point. I've been reviewing the accounts and— Which you had no authority to do, Aaron snapped. I'm the CFO. Gentlemen, Leighton raised his voice, let's focus on the agenda. First item, the proposed leadership change. Aaron straightened his tie. Yes, given recent events, I move to remove Virginia from her board position, effective immediately. Her emotional instability and attempts to undermine company operations make her presence untenable. I second the motion, Cassandra piped up. Every head turned to stare at her. You're not on the board, dear, I reminded her. Not yet, anyway. But she will be, Aaron said. After today's vote, Cassandra will assume Virginia's position. She has the education, the vision. And your baby, I finished. The room went silent. Cassandra's face went white. How did you— she started. Board members get access to company health insurance claims, I smiled. Congratulations. This is exactly the kind of personal attack that proves my point, Aaron said. Virginia, you're just embarrassing yourself. Leighton, call the vote. Mr. Johnson, I interrupted softly. Before we vote, I believe there's been a misunderstanding about shareholder majority. If you'll allow my counsel to speak. This is ridiculous. Aaron laughed. I own this company. I control the shares. Nicholas stood up, distributing documents to each board member. Actually, Mr. Stevenson, you own 30% of voting shares. The majority shareholder is a consortium of holding companies, which as of yesterday consolidated their ownership under a single entity. What? Aaron grabbed the papers. This is impossible. I would have known. Would you? I asked. Like you knew about the Jensen development fraud? Or the offshore accounts? Tom was scanning the documents, his face growing paler by the second. These companies. I sold shares to some of them years ago during my divorce. You did, I confirmed, at a very reasonable price. Virginia, Leighton said slowly. Are you saying the holding companies are mine? All of them, purchased over 10 years using my father's trust fund, the same fund that provided the initial capital for this company. I turned to Aaron. Remember that investment, darling? The one you made me write off as a gift to keep my name off the founding documents. Aaron lunged forward, but security was faster. They caught him before he reached me. You can't do this, he shouted. This is my company. 52% says it's not. I stood up. Mr. Johnson, I move to remove Aaron as CEO for breach of fiduciary duty and financial misconduct. I further move to appoint an interim CEO and launch a full audit of all company financials, particularly the Jensen development. You vindictive bitch, Cassandra screamed. After everything he gave you. Gave me. I turned to her. He gave me nothing. Everything he has, he built with my money, my support, my silence. Well, I'm not silent anymore. All those years, Aaron said, his voice breaking. You were planning this all along. No, I was protecting myself. The plan came when I found you in our bed with her. Leighton cleared his throat. Given these revelations, I second Mrs. Stevenson's motion. All in favor? Hands raised around the table. Even Tom, after a long moment, raised his. Motion carries, Leighton announced. Aaron, please leave the premises. Security will escort you to clear your office. This isn't over, Aaron snarled as security led him toward the door. Actually, it is. I sat back down. Oh, and Cassandra, I'm terminating your employment, effective immediately. Don't worry about cleaning out your desk. I'll have your things sent to Aaron's new apartment. I assume you're living together now. She fled the room in tears. Now then. I looked around the table at the shocked faces of my fellow board members. Shall we discuss the future of our company? The emphasis on our made Tom flinch. Good. Because this was just the beginning. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of legal documents, press statements, and changing locks. I sat in Aaron's former office, my office now, watching the sun set over Manhattan while Natalia poured us both a drink. The stock price only dropped 8%, she said, handing me a glass. Not bad considering. It'll recover. I swiveled my chair to face the wall of photos Aaron had installed. Him shaking hands with mayors, celebrities, business titans. Not a single picture of me or Lucy. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Tom entered, looking exhausted. The auditors found everything, he said, dropping a thick folder on my desk. The Jensen development fraud, the offshore accounts, even some things I didn't know about. Aaron was cooking the books for years. Sit down, Tom. I gestured to a chair. Let's talk about your role in all this. He collapsed into the seat. I swear I didn't know about most of it. The Jensen thing, yes, I suspected. But you said nothing. I opened the folder. Just like you said nothing when Aaron pushed me out of board meetings, when he took credit for my ideas, when he used my father's money to build this company and erased my name from its history. Virginia, please. I'm not firing you, Tom. I closed the folder. You're too valuable, and you have children to support, but things will be different now. My phone buzzed. A text from Lucy. Dad's saying terrible things about you, that you trapped him, spied on him, Cassandra's threatening to go to the media. Trouble? Natalia asked, noting my expression. Aaron's spinning his version of events. I typed back to Lucy. Check your email. I sent you proof of everything. Another knock. Nicholas entered with more papers. You need to see this, he said, laying out documents. Aaron transferred company shares to Cassandra last week. Put them in her name. I smiled. Let me guess. Conditional on their marriage? Exactly. But since they're not married, the shares revert to the company. I laughed. He tried to give away something that wasn't his to give. There's more, Nicholas continued. The prenup he had you sign? Invalid the moment he committed financial fraud. You're entitled to half of his remaining shares. Tom whistled. That would give you nearly 70% control. I don't want it. I stood up, walking to the window. Convert his shares to non-voting stock. He can keep the financial value, but he'll never have power in this company again. My phone rang. Aaron. Don't answer it, Natalia warned. I put it on speaker. You think you've won? Aaron's voice was slurred. I made you. You were nothing before me, just a quiet little girl with daddy's money. And you were a wannabe developer with big dreams and empty pockets, I replied calmly. Funny how things change. Cassandra's pregnant. That's my child, my heir. I can't what? Support them? Don't worry. The company will provide generous child support. I'm not you, Aaron. I don't punish children for their parents' mistakes. I'll fight this. I'll tell everyone how you deceived me, plotted against me. With what evidence? The offshore accounts you illegally created? The cooked books you're trying to hide? Face it, Aaron. You lost. Silence. I loved you once, he said finally. Did you ever love me? I looked at the photo wall, at all his moments of glory built on my silence. I loved the man I thought you were. The man who promised to build something with me. Not on top of me. I took a breath. Goodbye, Aaron. I hung up. He'll try something else, Tom warned. Let him try. I turned back to my desk. Now, about the Jensen development. Another text from Lucy. I read everything. The original investment documents, the fraud evidence. Mom, can we talk? Go, Natalia said, seeing the message. We can handle things here. I gathered my things but paused at the door. Tom, take down those photos. Replace them with images of our developments, our buildings. This company isn't about one man anymore. In the elevator, I texted Lucy back. Come home. I'll order from that Thai place you love. Her response was immediate. Already on my way. Dad's drinking, Cassandra's crying about the shares. I need my mom. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. Security guards nodded respectfully. No longer Aaron's men, but employees of the company. My company. Outside, the city lights were coming on, each window a tiny universe of possibility. I thought of all the quiet women in those buildings, watching, waiting, counting in silence. Ms. Meyer? My driver asked. Where to? Home, I said. My daughter's coming over. It was time to build something new, something honest, something that would last. And this time, I wouldn't be quiet about it. Lucy sat across from me at our kitchen island, pushing pad thai around her plate. The silence between us felt different now. Not angry, just uncertain. Dad signed the final papers today, she said finally. He's not contesting anything anymore. How is he? Drinking less. The baby's coming in 4 months. She set down her fork. Cassandra's having a girl. I nodded, letting her process at her own pace. She'll be my sister, Lucy continued. Half-sister. That's weird. Family is always complicated. Like you and Grandpa? She met my eyes. Is that why you did it this way? Built everything in secret like he did to you? Before I could answer, the elevator chimed. Natalia walked in, carrying files. Sorry to interrupt dinner, but you need to sign these. The Jensen development contractors are getting nervous. Come sit, I told her. Lucy was just asking about her grandfather. Natalia joined us, accepting a glass of wine. Ah, the original trust fund story. Have you told her about the notebook? What notebook? Lucy asked. I went to my study and returned with a worn leather journal. Your grandfather's. I found it after he died. I opened it to a marked page. Read this entry. Lucy took it carefully. Virginia is too much like her mother. Too quiet. Too careful with money. She'll never understand business. Better to protect her from herself. That's harsh. Keep reading. Setting up trust fund through Maxwell. No direct control. She'll thank me someday when she hasn't lost it all on emotional decisions. Lucy looked up. But you didn't lose it. You multiplied it. More than that, Natalia added. She built a safety net so strong it caught everyone who tried to push her off the tightrope. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom. Contractors settled. Project back on track. You were right about the revised terms. Mom? Lucy's voice was small. Was any of it real? You and Dad? The love was real. The respect wasn't. I took back the journal. Your father saw me the same way my father did, as someone to be managed, not partnered with. And now you run everything. No. I shook my head. Now I run what's mine, what I built, what I earned. The elevator chimed again. Nicholas walked in, looking pleased. Aaron signed the final stock conversion papers. It's done. His shares are officially non-voting. Good. I turned to Lucy. Your father still has his wealth. He can support his new family. He just can't control anyone anymore. Including me? She asked quietly. Especially you. I reached for her hand. You don't have to choose sides anymore. But I did choose. I chose wrong. I believed him when he said you were jealous and bitter. I helped Cassandra go through your clothes for God's sake. You were 16, facing your parents' divorce. We all make mistakes at 16. Natalia cleared her throat. Speaking of 16-year-olds, tell her about the scholarship program. Lucy looked up. What scholarship program? The company's new initiative, I explained. Full college scholarships for daughters of single mothers, plus guaranteed internships. That's specific. It's personal, I corrected. Everything worth building is. My phone buzzed again. An email from Aaron. The baby shower is next month. Lucy wants you there. I won't be. I showed it to Lucy. Your choice, honey. No pressure. She squared her shoulders. My posture, I realized with a start. I'll go if you go. My sister should know both sides of her family's story. Speaking of stories, Natalia said, have you seen the applications for the junior executive program? 28 women, all under 30. Including Cassandra's replacement, Nicholas added with a smirk. No, I said firmly. We're not doing revenge. We're doing better. I turned to Lucy. Want to help me interview them? Her eyes lit up. Really? Really. It's time you learned how this business actually works. Not your father's version, the real version. With real numbers, Natalia added. And real consequences, Nicholas finished. Lucy picked up her grandfather's journal again. Can I keep this? I want to understand everything. It's yours. I stood up, gathering the dishes. But that's the past. We're building the future now. A future with better closet security, Natalia joked, making Lucy blush. And better accounting, Nicholas added. And better families, Lucy said softly. I looked at my daughter, seeing not the angry teen who'd packed her bags, but the woman she was becoming. Strong, clear-eyed, unafraid. Let's get started then, I said, pulling out the interview files. Show me what you see in these candidates. As Lucy began reading, her voice growing more confident with each assessment, I caught Natalia's knowing smile. This was the real victory. Not the company, not the revenge, but this moment. Teaching my daughter that power doesn't come from being loud or cruel or controlling. It comes from being underestimated and proving them wrong. "Let's get started, gentlemen," I whispered, echoing my words from that first board meeting. But this time, I wasn't alone. This time, I had built something that would outlast all their mistakes. And I'd never be quiet about it again.
James left me a message. "Living with Diana now. Don't bother asking for money. I've made sure there's nothing left to split." I stared at my phone, holding my coffee steady. Sunlight streamed into the kitchen, lighting up the same countertop where we'd had breakfast just yesterday. 15 years of marriage, and this was how he ended it, with a text. I sighed and typed back, "Thanks for letting me know." I added a thumbs up emoji for good measure. His response came immediately. "That's it? No crying? No begging. Diana was right, you really are cold." I set my phone down. Diana, his 28-year-old assistant, had been in his life for only 8 months. She had no idea what she was getting into. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. I opened my laptop and pulled up an old email from Marcus, our accountant. 3 months ago, he'd warned me about strange activity in our company's finances. I had told him to investigate. Now I was glad I did. I dialed Marcus. He picked up on the second ring. "Olivia, I was just about to call you. The audit report came in this morning." I smiled. Perfect timing. James just told me he's moved in with Diana, and there's nothing left to split. Marcus sighed. He actually put that in writing. With an emoji, I confirmed. "Let's move forward with everything we discussed." "Are you sure? Once we report this." He made his choice, Marcus. Now he'll face the consequences. Just then, my phone buzzed again. Another text from James. "I'll send someone to pack up your things. Diana wants to redecorate." I chuckled, thinking about the financial evidence Marcus had been gathering. Hidden money, fake accounts, offshore transfers. James thought he was clever, but he forgot one thing. I helped build our company. I knew everything. The doorbell rang. I checked the security camera. Diana stood there, clutching her designer handbag. Bold move. I opened the door with a polite smile. "Diana? What a surprise." She hesitated, then said, "James asked me to measure for new curtains. He said you'd be moving out soon." I stepped aside. "Go ahead. But maybe wait until after the audit." She froze. "The audit?" I feigned surprise. "Oh, James didn't tell you. The IRS is very interested in some recent transactions." Her face paled. I should check with James first." "Probably a good idea," I said lightly. "Oh, and ask him about the Peterson account. Just something to think about." Diana practically ran to her car. I watched her speed off, knowing exactly what would happen next. She called James in a panic. He'd reassure her, blame me, tell her not to worry. But then she'd look up the Peterson account. She'd see how its CEO went to prison for fraud. She'd realize James had copied the same tricks. A new text from James appeared. "What did you say to Diana?" I snapped a picture of the audit report and sent it. 3 dots appeared as he typed. Then they disappeared. Then they came back. "Finally, we need to talk." "Yes," I replied. "Bring your lawyer." I set my phone down and looked out the window. James had always loved this house, loved the way it made him look successful. But he'd underestimated me. That was about to change. Bennett and Associates took up the entire 15th floor of a sleek downtown building. I sat in a conference room, watching James shift uncomfortably in his expensive suit. Across the table, his lawyer, Gregory, flipped through the audit report, his expression growing more tense by the second. "This is ridiculous," James snapped. "You're trying to destroy everything I built." "Everything we built," I corrected, keeping my voice calm. "Or did you forget who handled the clients while you were busy impressing Diana?" Marcus, our longtime accountant, sat beside me, papers neatly spread out in front of him. James was only now realizing just how much Marcus knew. "Mrs. Parker," Gregory began carefully, "surely we can discuss this. My client is willing to." "Your client," I interrupted, "has been moving money into secret accounts for months. He stole client funds, faked reports, and committed tax fraud. Should I go on?" James's face turned red. "You can't prove that." Marcus slid a USB drive across the table. "Actually, we can. Every shady transaction, every fake document, it's all here. Including the offshore account he opened in Diana's name last month. Diana, who had come along expecting to support James, suddenly looked confused. What offshore account? She asked. James waved a hand. It's nothing, baby. Just business. I let out a quiet laugh. Oh, you mean transferring $2.3 million into an account under your girlfriend's name? That business? Diana's face paled. James, what is she talking about? Don't let her manipulate you, James said, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He knew we had him cornered. Sarah, my lawyer, finally spoke. Mr. Parker, the IRS has already been notified. They're very interested in your creative bookkeeping. James's eyes met mine. You wouldn't. They'll go down too. The firm will be ruined. No, James, I said. I've already given full proof of my cooperation. The board is ready to move forward. You're the only one going down. Diana suddenly stood up. I need some air. She grabbed her purse and rushed out. Diana, wait. James called after her, but she didn't stop. He turned back to me, his face twisted with anger. Happy now? You've ruined everything. No, James, you did that yourself. Gregory leaned over and whispered something to James. His shoulders slumped. He had lost. What do you want? James finally asked. Sarah slid a document across the table. Full disclosure of all assets. Immediate resignation from the firm. A clean divorce with fair division of legal assets. Sign this, and we might keep you out of prison. James stared at the paper, his hands shaking. And if I don't? Then we report everything to the IRS and FBI, Marcus said simply. Silence filled the room. James picked up the pen, hesitated, then signed. His usual confident signature now shaky. You'll need to leave the house immediately, Sarah added. Your company access ends today. James stood up, trying to fix his jacket like he still had control. You think you've won. You're nothing without me. I stayed seated. That's where you're wrong, James. I built this company too. The difference is, I did it honestly. He stormed out. Through the glass walls, I saw Diana waiting by the elevators. She didn't even look at him. Instead, she kept pressing the down button, eager to get away. I gathered my things, the weight of the morning settling in. Marcus gave my arm a reassuring squeeze. You did the right thing, Olivia. I nodded, watching as James and Diana left in separate elevators. I know, I just wish he'd made better choices. As I stepped out of the conference room, I lifted my head high. The worst was over. Now it was time to rebuild my firm, my life, and my future. But this time, on my own terms. 6 months after the meeting that changed everything, I stood in my office overlooking the city skyline. The firm had not only survived James' departure but was thriving. Our clients had appreciated my transparency during the transition, and most had chosen to stay. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Just heard from Gregory. James took the plea deal. 3 years, minimum security, plus full restitution. I set my phone down, letting the news sink in. It wasn't satisfaction I felt, but rather a sense of closure. The man I'd married, the one I'd built a life with, had chosen his path. Now he was facing the consequences. Diana, as it turned out, had been smarter than anyone gave her credit for. Once she understood her name had been used in James's schemes, she'd cooperated fully with the investigation. Last I heard, she'd moved back to her hometown and was working for a small accounting firm, legitimately this time. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. Sarah Bennett stood there, holding a manila envelope. It's done, she said, placing the envelope on my desk. The divorce is final. The house and your share of the firm are secure. I picked up the envelope but didn't open it. Have you heard from him? Sarah shook her head. Not since he accepted the plea deal. His lawyer says he's different now. Quieter. I thought about the James I'd known, confident, charming, and utterly convinced of his own cleverness. Prison would be a harsh awakening. The board meeting went well, I said, changing the subject. We're expanding the compliance department, implementing new oversight procedures. Learning from experience, Sarah smiled. Making sure it never happens again. I corrected. That evening I walked through my house, my home, seeing it with new eyes. The spaces James and I had shared were slowly becoming mine alone. I'd redecorated the living room, planted a garden in the backyard, turned his study into a library. Each change felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. My doorbell rang, and I opened it to find Marcus holding a bottle of wine. "Thought you could use this," he said, stepping inside. "Just got word that the last of the restitution payments has been processed. All affected clients have been made whole." I led him to the kitchen, pulling out 2 glasses. "That's worth celebrating." As we sat on my back patio, watching the sunset, Marcus cleared his throat. "You know, when I first noticed the discrepancies in the accounts, I was afraid to tell you. Thought it might break you." I smiled, sipping my wine. The old me might have broken, but I'm not that person anymore. "No," he agreed, "you're stronger." A text lit up my phone from James's sister, Emma. She'd stood by me through everything, choosing truth over family loyalty. "Just checked on the house," she wrote. "He's doing okay. Teaches accounting to other inmates now. Says he's sorry." I didn't respond. His apology, while probably sincere, came too late. The time for sorry had passed. "What's next for you?" Marcus asked, noticing my distraction. I looked out at my garden, where new flowers were starting to bloom. "Growth. The firm is expanding. I'm mentoring young accountants, teaching them to spot the red flags I missed. Something good should come from all this." And personally, I thought about the art classes I'd started taking, the travel plans I was making, the life I was building on my own terms. "I'm learning to trust again," I said finally, "not others, myself." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with another message. This one was from an unknown number. "I'm sorry. For everything. Jay." I deleted it without responding. The time for his words had passed. Now was the time for my actions. Marcus raised his glass. "To new beginnings?" "To wisdom," I corrected, clinking my glass against his. "And to knowing your own worth." Later that night, after Marcus left, I sat in my library, the room that once housed James's schemes and secrets. On the wall hung a new piece of art, a painting I created in my classes. It wasn't perfect, but it was authentically mine. I picked up the manila envelope Sarah had brought earlier, finally ready to look at the divorce papers. As I read through them, I felt no sadness, no regret. Instead, I felt peace. James had thought he was writing the end of our story when he sent that text 6 months ago. Instead, he'd only written the end of his chapter. My story was just beginning. Standing at my window, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, I smiled. The audit report that had changed everything now sat in a drawer, a reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of love are the ones we do for ourselves. Like choosing truth over comfort, strength over silence, and growth over stagnation. Tomorrow, I would wake up and continue building the life I deserved. And this time, I would do it on my own terms. "You never deserve our son," my mother-in-law said coldly, dangling the new house keys in front of me. "It's time you understand your place in this family." I stood there silently as she finished changing the locks on the house I had lived in for 7 years. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and at 35, I was watching my in-laws kick me out of my own home. The situation would have been almost funny if it weren't so frustrating. "Nothing to say," my father-in-law mocked. "No tears. No begging. I thought you put up more of a fight." I adjusted my bag and smiled. "No need. Maybe you're right. I never deserved your son." The confusion on their faces almost made up for the humiliation of this moment. Almost. From the day I married David, they made it clear I wasn't good enough. I was just a middle-class girl who had somehow married into their wealthy family. They never let me forget it. Not at family dinners, not during holidays, and certainly not during the many family meetings where they criticized me as a wife. "Well," my mother-in-law huffed, disappointed by my lack of resistance, "at least you finally understand. David will be better off with Madison anyway. She comes from the right kind of family." Ah, Madison. The family friend who had been hanging around David for the past year. The same Madison who had secret lunch meetings with him, sent late-night texts, and slowly crept into my marriage. The perfect woman for their perfect son. Everything they thought I wasn't. As I turned to leave, my mother-in-law's voice stopped me. "Don't think about claiming anything. David was smart enough not to put your name on any property or accounts. You'll leave with nothing, just like you deserve." I nodded and walked away as they celebrated their victory. What they didn't know, what David didn't know, was that I had seen this coming long before they did. 2 years into our marriage, when David had a bad car accident, he trusted me to handle all the paperwork. You're better at this stuff anyway, he had said, signing whatever I put in front of him. So I did exactly that. I handled everything, including transferring the house into my name. Not out of greed, but because I knew what his parents were capable of. I loved David, but I wasn't naive. I protected myself. Now, as I walked away from the house I legally owned, I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. Julia, it happened just like we expected. Yes, they changed the locks. No, I didn't tell them about the deed. Let's move forward. I checked into the Four Seasons. Might as well be comfortable while the storm brewed. Julia had advised me to document everything. My in-laws' emotional abuse, David's affair with Madison, the messages, the bank records. Your in-laws will regret this, Julia had said. And David, well, he made his choice. I'd ordered room service and opened my laptop, checking the security cameras I had installed in the house months ago. The live feed showed my in-laws settling in, probably planning how to redecorate now that I was gone. A text popped up from David. Mom said you finally left. It's better this way. Madison and I can be together now. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to Julia to add to our case file. 3 days. That's how long Julia said it would take to finalize everything. 3 days before they realized their mistake. Sipping my wine, I watched the sunset from my hotel room. Soon, David and his parents would learn the truth. The house, the cars, even his boat. They were all mine. Legal, documented, and untouchable. My grandmother always said, I murmured, raising my glass. The best revenge is letting people think they've won. I smiled. In 3 days, they would understand why I hadn't fought back. I had already won. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Letting go of a life where I was never accepted felt freeing. Tomorrow would be chaos. But tonight, I could finally breathe. 3 days passed quickly. Through my security cameras, I watched my in-laws and Madison turn my house into their dream home. They replaced my photos, moved my things to the garage, and acted like I never existed. On the 4th morning, I got dressed in my favorite black dress, styled my hair, and headed to meet Julia at the courthouse. It was time. Everything's ready, Julia said, handing me a stack of papers. The police will meet us there. Are you sure you want to do this publicly? I nodded. They humiliated me in front of everyone. It's only fair they learn their lesson the same way. We arrived just as David's car pulled into the driveway. Right on time. 2 police cars and a locksmith van followed. David stepped out with Madison beside him, his confident smile fading as he saw us. What's this? He asked. Sarah, if you're trying to make a scene. Julia stepped forward. We're here with a court order. This property belongs solely to Mrs. Mitchell. You and your family are trespassing. David laughed, but there was doubt in his eyes. That's ridiculous. This is my house. I bought it. With my money, I said. And you signed it over to me while you were recovering. Remember those papers you didn't bother to read? His face went pale just as his parents came outside. What's going on? My mother-in-law demanded. A police officer held out the official documents. Ma'am, you're trespassing. You have 1 hour to gather your things and leave. This is absurd, my father-in-law yelled. David, tell them this is your house. David frantically scrolled through his phone, searching for proof. This can't be right. Sarah, what did you do? I protected myself, I said simply. Just like you tried to protect yourself by keeping my name off everything. But you didn't read the fine print. You signed everything over to me. Madison grabbed David's arm. Baby, they can't do this. Tell them they can't do this. The officer checked his watch. 53 minutes left. My mother-in-law lunged at me, face twisted with rage. Careful, Julia warned. Everything is being recorded. You've already committed illegal entry. Want to add assault to the list? The next hour was chaos. My in-laws scrambled to grab whatever they could while the police watched. I stood by my car, calm, as their perfect plan collapsed. The cars too, Julia said as David tried to get into his BMW. The boat, the vehicles, everything is in Mrs. Mitchell's name. You can't take everything, he shouted. I earned that money. I opened a folder. Here are bank statements showing how you've been draining our accounts for your secret life with Madison. And here's proof of the money your parents tried to transfer out last week. Should I keep going? Their faces showed pure defeat. Madison was already calling in Uber, suddenly uninterested now that David had nothing. As they loaded their last belongings into my father-in-law's car, the only one in their name, David turned to me. "Why?" he asked, his voice hollow. "Why did he just tell me you knew?" I looked at him for the first time in months. "Because you didn't deserve a warning. You and your family spent years making me feel small, like I wasn't enough. You never thought I was smart enough to protect myself. That was your mistake." The locksmith finished changing the locks, ones only I had the keys to. Julia handed David an envelope. "Divorce papers," she said. "Mrs. Mitchell is filing on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct. You'll need a good lawyer." I watched them drive away, my mother-in-law crying, my father-in-law furious, David defeated, Madison disappearing. It felt like a weight had lifted. Julia shut her briefcase. That went better than expected, ready to go inside. I looked at my house, truly mine now, and smiled. Actually, I have one more stop to make first. The day wasn't over yet. I had one last surprise, one that would show them losing the house was just the beginning of their problems. That evening, while David and his family were probably scrambling to find hotel rooms, I sat in the office of James Parker, my mother's old friend and the executor of her estate. The same estate my in-laws never knew existed. "The timing couldn't be better," James said, spreading documents across his desk. "Your mother would be proud of how you handled everything." What my husband and his family never bothered to learn about me was that my middle-class background was a choice, not a reality. My mother had been a silent investor in multiple real estate developments, leaving me a substantial inheritance when she passed. I kept it quiet, living modestly, wanting to build a genuine relationship with David. "The trust becomes active tomorrow," James continued. "Now that you're filing for divorce, there's no reason to keep it separate anymore. The properties, investments, everything transfers to your control." I picked up my mother's old photo from his desk, smiling at her confident expression. She'd always warned me to keep something for myself, to maintain my independence no matter what. "Never let anyone make you feel small," she'd said. "Just let them think they're bigger than you until they prove they don't deserve your trust." My phone buzzed. A message from Julia. David's parents had tried to access their retirement accounts, only to discover their recent financial manipulations had triggered a fraud investigation. Their attempts to help David hide money from me during the divorce had backfired spectacularly. "Should we proceed with the press release?" James asked, holding up a draft announcement about the new charitable foundation I was establishing, one that would help women achieve financial independence after divorce. Yes, I nodded. "It's time." The next morning, while having breakfast at my favorite cafe, I watched as the announcement hit the local news. The Mitchell Family Foundation, named after my mother, not my soon-to-be ex-husband, would be offering grants, legal assistance, and support to women rebuilding their lives. David's sister called first, surprisingly. "I had no idea," she said quietly, "about any of it, what they did to you, who you really were. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you." "Thank you," I replied sincerely. She'd been the only one who'd occasionally shown me kindness. "Would you like to help with the foundation? We could use someone who understands family dynamics." By evening, the story had spread through our social circle. The same people who'd watched silently as my in-laws humiliated me, who'd turned a blind eye to Madison and David's affair, were suddenly flooding my phone with messages of support and congratulations. I declined all their calls except one, from my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who'd been the only person to warn me about Madison's frequent visits while I was away. "You did good, girl," she said warmly. "Your mother would be proud." A week later, I received a letter from David. He wrote about regret, about realizing too late what he'd lost, about hoping someday I could forgive him. Madison, he mentioned, had already started dating someone else. Someone with an actual fortune, not just the appearance of one. I didn't reply. Instead, I focused on renovating my house, removing all traces of their presence. Each room I redesigned felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The foundation's first grant recipient was a woman who reminded me of myself. Someone whose in-laws had tried to bully her out of her home. Helping her stand up for herself felt like turning my pain into purpose. 6 months later, I ran into my former mother-in-law at the grocery store. She looked older, tired. The fraud investigation had cost them their reputation and most of their retirement savings. She started to turn away but then stopped. "You won," she said simply. You had the power all along, and we never saw it. No, I corrected her. I didn't win. I just stopped letting you make me lose. As I drove home that evening, I thought about everything that had happened. My mother had taught me that true strength isn't about fighting every battle. It's about knowing which ones are worth fighting and being prepared when they come. I parked in my driveway, looking at my beautiful home, now truly mine in every way. The garden was blooming with the roses I'd planted, my favorite wind chimes tinkled in the breeze, and through the window, I could see the family photos I'd restored to their rightful place. Inside, on my desk, lay the final divorce papers ready to be filed. Beside them sat the foundation's latest grant applications, more women seeking the chance I'd had, the opportunity to stand on their own feet. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about building something beautiful from the ashes of what others tried to destroy. My in-laws had wanted to break me, but instead, they'd helped me build something stronger than I'd ever imagined. And that was worth more than any house or inheritance could ever be. Get your things and leave. This house is for family only. Margaret shouted as she threw my bag onto the sand. I don't care what my son says. You're just his wife, not real family. My name is Olivia. I'm 34, and my mother-in-law was kicking me out of our beach house while my husband James was away for work. For 8 years, this had been our summer home, a place full of happy memories with James and our daughter, Emma. Margaret stood on the deck, angry and red-faced. Behind her, my sister-in-law, Amanda, smirked. She was already imagining how she would turn my art studio into a playroom for her kids. Did you hear me? Margaret snapped. Pack up and go. Amanda's kids need the space. They're a real family. I calmly picked up my bag, brushing off the sand. Of course, Margaret, I understand. She frowned, expecting me to argue or cry. Well, good, she muttered, disappointed. James will agree. Family comes first. Oh, I'm sure he will, I said with a small smile as I walked inside to pack. I could hear Margaret and Amanda talking in the kitchen. That awful blue paint in the master bedroom. Gone? Margaret said. And that silly art studio? It'll be a perfect playroom. As I packed, I thought about James's grandfather, Robert. He had built this house with his own hands and always welcomed me, even when Margaret didn't. You're the daughter I always wanted, Robert had told me before he passed away. Promise me you'll keep this house full of love. Real family, not just blood. I had promised him, and he had done something to make sure I could. Margaret appeared in the doorway. I called a car for you, she said. Amanda's family will be here soon. I picked up my bag and smiled. Just one thing before I go, I should call the security company. Margaret frowned. Security? Why? To update the codes. Can't have unauthorized people in the house. Amanda stepped forward. This is our family home. I looked at them and said, actually, it's mine. Robert left it to me. Silence. Margaret's face turned pale. Amanda's mouth hung open. You're lying, Margaret whispered. I pulled a paper from my purse. Want to see the deed? Robert made sure it was official. Margaret grabbed it with shaking hands. As she read the final paragraph, her eyes widened. Robert had left the house to me with a clear note. This home is for real family, not just blood. This can't be legal, Amanda said weakly. Oh, it's very legal, I replied. In fact, since you care so much about unauthorized people, I should ask you both to leave. I'll be changing the locks. Margaret gasped. You can't do this. We've spent 40 summers here. I smiled. Actually, I can. But unlike you, I believe family is about love, not just blood. So here's the deal. You both apologize sincerely. Then we'll sit down and make a fair schedule for using the house. One that includes everyone. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Margaret? That awful blue paint in the master bedroom. It's staying. Robert picked it himself. The aftermath of my revelation rippled through the family like a tidal wave. Margaret and Amanda left that evening, slamming doors and making dire threats about lawyers and family betrayal. I spent that night alone in the beach house, sitting on the deck where Robert and I used to share our morning coffee, remembering his words about standing my ground. James called the next morning, his voice tight with concern. Mom called me in hysterics. Something about you kicking them out of the beach house? I took a deep breath, watching the waves roll in. Your mother tried to throw me out first, claiming the house was for blood relatives only. I simply showed her the deed Robert left me. There was a long pause. Grandpa Rob left you the house? His tone was surprise, but not angry. When? Last year, before he passed. He wanted to make sure it stayed a place for the whole family, not just the ones your mother approves of. I explained everything. Margaret's ambush, Amanda's smug plans for my art studio, their attempts to erase every trace of my presence in the house. James let out a slow breath. I'm sorry, Liv. I should have seen this coming. Mom's always been difficult with you. Difficult is putting it mildly, I said, thinking of 8 years of subtle jabs and not so subtle exclusions. But I'm not going to stoop to her level. The house stays open to everyone, as long as they can behave like actual family. I'm coming home, he decided. This needs to be handled in person. While waiting for James to arrive, I received a barrage of texts from extended family members. Some, like James's cousin Michael, were supportive. About time someone stood up to Aunt Margaret. Others, clearly influenced by Margaret's version of events, were less kind. I spent the day going through old photos Robert had kept in his study. There were pictures of James as a child, building sandcastles with his grandfather, photos of family barbecues and fishing trips, and newer ones, Emma's first steps on the beach, Robert teaching her to use his old telescope, my art shows in the garden. The sound of cars pulling up broke through my reminiscing. Looking out the window, I saw James's car, followed by Margaret's luxury SUV, Showtime. The family meeting that followed was exactly as tense as I'd expected. We gathered in the living room, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the ocean, a view Margaret had always claimed was wasted on my amateur paintings. This is ridiculous, Margaret started, her voice shrill. Robert wasn't in his right mind when he made these changes. We'll contest it. Actually, James interrupted. I called his lawyer this morning. Everything's ironclad. Dad witnessed the signing himself. Margaret turned to her husband, Thomas, who had been suspiciously quiet until now. You knew about this? Thomas shifted uncomfortably. Rob talked to me about it. Said he wanted to make sure the house stayed what it was meant to be, a place for family to come together, not drift apart. We are together. Amanda protested. We're blood. Blood isn't everything, I said quietly. Family is about love, support, acceptance. Robert understood that. He saw how you both treated me, how you tried to exclude me, how you made Emma feel less special than Amanda's kids because she's not a peer steward. James's head snapped up. What? Oh, you didn't know? I turned to my husband. Last Christmas, your mother told Emma she couldn't participate in the family gift exchange because she wasn't really a steward since I'm not from the right bloodline. The room fell silent. James looked at his mother in horror. Tell me that's not true. Margaret's face flushed. I was just trying to maintain family traditions. By hurting my daughter. James's voice was dangerously quiet. By making my wife feel unwelcome in her own family. She's not family. Margaret burst out. She's just some girl you married instead of Catherine Williams like we planned. Finally, the truth came out. This had never been about family traditions or bloodlines. It was about control, about Margaret's thwarted plans for her son's life. Enough. James stood up. Mom, Amanda, you both have a choice to make. Either you accept that Olivia is my wife, Emma is my daughter, and this house belongs to all of us, or you don't visit at all. Your call. Amanda started crying, a tactic that had always worked on her brother before. But James wasn't backing down. He moved to stand beside me, his hand finding mine. Robert knew what he was doing, he said firmly, and I support his decision completely. Margaret stood up, smoothing her expensive slacks with trembling hands. Well, I can see where this is going. Come on, Amanda. We know when we're not wanted. That's the thing, Margaret, I said, stopping her before she could storm out. You are wanted. Your family. But family means accepting all of us, not just the ones who fit your ideal image. She paused at the door, her back rigid. For a moment, I thought I saw her shoulders slump, just slightly. But then she straightened up and walked out, Amanda trailing behind her. Thomas lingered, looking torn. She'll come around, he said finally. She just needs time. Rob, he would be proud of you, Olivia. Both of you. As the sound of cars fading into the distance filled the air, James and I stood on the deck, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and pink. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I should have protected you and Emma better." I leaned into his side. "We're protecting each other now. That's what real family does." 3 months passed and summer was in full swing. Emma had returned from camp, ecstatic to find that not only were we still at the beach house, but her art room had been expanded. James and I had converted one of the unused bedrooms into a proper studio space for both of us, filling it with easels, canvases, and the sound of laughter. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, as if the weight of years of judgment had finally lifted. Without Margaret's constant criticism, we were free to make the place truly our own while honoring Robert's memory. We heard through Thomas that Margaret and Amanda were spending the summer at an exclusive resort, making sure everyone in their social circle knew they were too good for the old family beach house. But their absence had an unexpected effect. Other family members who had stayed away over the years began to return. James's cousin Michael brought his kids for a weekend, something Margaret had always discouraged because his wife was too common. His sister Lucy, who'd been practically disowned for becoming a public school teacher instead of a lawyer, came with her girlfriend. The house was alive with the kind of genuine warmth Robert had always wanted. One evening, as I was setting up for our weekly family barbecue, a tradition I'd started to bring everyone together, I found Emma sitting in Robert's old study, looking at photographs. "Great-Grandpa Rob was really smart, wasn't he?" she said, touching a picture of him teaching her about constellations. "He was," I agreed, sitting beside her. "He knew what really mattered." "Is Grandma Margaret ever coming back?" Emma asked quietly. "Amanda's kids still won't talk to me at school." I pulled her close. "Sometimes people need time to learn important lessons. Your great-grandpa believed everyone could change if given the chance to understand what family really means." As if on cue, we heard a car pulling up outside. Through the window, I saw a familiar luxury SUV. Margaret stepped out, alone, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. James met her at the door. I could see them talking on the porch, his posture gradually relaxing. When they came inside, Margaret's eyes were red. "Olivia," she said, her voice lacking its usual sharp edge. "Could we talk?" In Robert's study, Margaret looked around at the photos, pausing at one of him with Emma and me, all of us covered in paint after an afternoon of art lessons. "He always said you reminded him of my mother," she said softly. "She was an artist too." I thought he was criticizing my choice to give up painting for a more suitable career. "It wasn't criticism," I replied. "It was recognition." Margaret nodded, wiping her eyes. "I've been talking with Thomas. And my therapist." She almost smiled at my surprised look. "I'm trying to understand why I've been so resistant to accepting you. And Emma, the truth is, I've spent my whole life trying to be what I thought a steward should be. I forgot how to just be family." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small package. "I found this in my attic. It's my mother's old sketchbook. I thought maybe Emma might like to see her great-grandmother's art." It was a peace offering, small but significant. "She'd love that," I said. "We're having a barbecue tonight. Would you like to stay?" That evening, as the sun set over the ocean, our expanded family gathered on the deck. Margaret sat with Emma, showing her old sketches and for the first time, really seeing her granddaughter. Amanda called, tentatively asking if she and her kids could visit next weekend. Thomas caught my eye and smiled, raising his glass slightly. Above us, stars began to appear, the same stars Robert used to name for Emma. I could almost hear his voice. "Family isn't about being perfect, kitten. It's about being together." The beach house had become what it was always meant to be, not a symbol of status or bloodline, but a home where family, in all its imperfect, beautiful forms, could grow together. As I watched Margaret genuinely laugh at one of James's jokes, I realized that sometimes the greatest act of family love isn't holding on to anger, but opening the door to change. Robert had known that all along. That's why he left the house to me, not to exclude, but to include, to build bridges instead of walls. In the end, it wasn't about ownership at all. It was about creating a place where everyone could belong, where blood relatives only transformed into all are welcome. That was Robert's true legacy, and we were finally living it. My sister-in-law, Amanda's cheerful voice rang from my phone as I scrolled through her latest Instagram post. My hands shook with anger as I watched her video. She made it look like she had been by my son Oliver's hospital bed the whole time, watching over him with love. The truth? She had only been there for 15 minutes, just enough to take pictures and videos, while I had spent the last 3 days sleeping in an uncomfortable hospital chair, exhausted and worried sick. My name is Sophie Turner, and at 34 years old, I'm watching Amanda use my 8-year-old son's severe asthma attack to gain fame on social media. Being an aunt means being there through the hardest times. Amanda's voice played over the video as she posed next to Oliver's nebulizer. Little warrior Oliver is fighting so hard, and Auntie Amanda won't leave his side. #prayers for Oliver, #family first, #aunt life. I turned off the video, my stomach twisting. She had posted it an hour ago, but she hadn't even been at the hospital since yesterday. Meanwhile, I hadn't left Oliver's side once. My clothes were wrinkled, my hair was a mess, and I had dark circles under my eyes from no sleep. A text from my husband, Mark, popped up. Have you seen Amanda's latest post? Mom is sharing it everywhere, saying what an amazing aunt she is. Of course she was. My mother-in-law, Diana, had always favored Amanda. Now, every time Amanda posted about Oliver, Diana would spread it around, praising her dedication. I typed back yes. I didn't trust myself to say more. Mark was at home with our younger daughter, Emma, trying to keep things normal for her while I stayed with Oliver. He knew how I felt about Amanda's social media act, but he always tried to keep the peace. Your sister's post has over 50,000 likes, I texted after a moment. Too bad none of those people can help her actually show up so I can take a shower. Oliver stirred in his bed, his voice weak. Mom. I put my phone down right away and rushed to his side. I'm here, baby. Do you need anything? He shook his head slightly, his blue eyes looking tired but better than before. The doctors said he was improving, but we still had to be careful. My phone buzzed again. Amanda was now doing a live video from her perfectly decorated home office, tears in her eyes. I've barely slept, she sniffled, her makeup still perfect. But that's what family does, right? We sacrifice everything for the ones we love. The comments poured in. You're such an amazing aunt. You're literally an angel. Oliver is lucky to have you. I wanted to scream. While Amanda was gaining followers, I was actually taking care of Oliver. The sleepless nights, the constant worry, watching his oxygen levels, holding my breath every time he struggled to breathe. That was real. And the worst part, Amanda was using my son's illness to grow her online following. In just 3 days, she had gone from 5,000 followers to over 75,000. Every post about Oliver made her more famous. A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Dr. Martinez, Oliver's doctor. How's our patient? She asked, checking his chart. Better, I said, running my fingers through Oliver's curls. His breathing is easier today. Dr. Martinez nodded. That's good. Has anyone come to give you a break? You look exhausted. I thought about Amanda's live stream still happening. No, I said quietly, it's just me. She gave me a kind look. Try to rest when you can. Oliver needs you to be healthy too. After she left, I checked my phone again. Amanda had already posted new pictures, old baby photos of her with Oliver, carefully edited to look perfect. The strongest little warrior I know, she had written. Auntie's heart is breaking, but I won't leave his side. Follow for more updates on our journey. #family over everything, #auntie life, #prayer warrior. Our journey. I looked at my sleeping son, then at my reflection in the window, messy hair, tired face, and a coffee-stained shirt. This wasn't a journey. It wasn't content. This was my child fighting to breathe, while Amanda turned his illness into her social media brand. Then another text from my mother-in-law. Amanda is doing such a great job keeping everyone updated. You should thank her for taking this burden off your shoulders. That was it. Something inside me snapped. I opened my laptop and started typing. It was time to show the world what real family looked like, and it had nothing to do with likes, shares, or follower counts. I stared at my laptop screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Oliver's heart monitor beeped steadily in the background, and the hospital room's bright lights cast sharp shadows. But I could see clearly now. I knew what I had to do. I pulled up Amanda's posts from the past 3 days, 15 staged photos, 7 emotional videos, 3 dramatic live streams, all making her look like a devoted aunt. Then I opened my phone's camera roll. My photos were different. No filters, no perfect angles, just real moments. Oliver's 2 breathing treatments, his tired but brave smiles, the nurses helping him. Most importantly, I had the hospital's visitor log. It showed the truth. Amanda had spent just 45 minutes at the hospital in 3 days, only long enough for her social media posts. Sophie? Oliver's weak voice broke my thoughts. Is Aunt Amanda really helping me get better? My heart clenched. He had seen her posts. She had made sure of that. No, sweetheart, I said gently, sitting beside him. You're getting better because you're strong. And because of the doctors, the nurses, and the people who are really here with you. He nodded, squeezing my hand. I just thought, maybe she cared more now. That was it. My decision was made. I opened my social media account and typed, a story about real family, no filters, no music, just the truth. First, I posted the visitor log proving Amanda's short visits. Then, my real photos, ones that showed the hard moments, the sleepless nights, the reality of caring for a sick child. Real family, I wrote, doesn't need an audience. Real family shows up in the hard moments, not just the photogenic ones. I added screenshots of Amanda's monetized posts, her sponsorship deals, and the merchandise line she had launched using Oliver's illness. My hands shook as I hit post, but I felt lighter. The reaction was immediate. My phone buzzed nonstop. People who had believed Amanda's devoted aunt act were shocked. They started questioning her. Did you think this through? Mark texted. You know how Mom will react. As if on cue, my mother-in-law called. I let it go to voicemail. I already knew she would tell me I was being unfair, that Amanda was just trying to help, but I wasn't the one dividing the family. Amanda had done that when she used my son's illness for attention. Then, a nurse peeked into the room. Mrs. Turner, there's someone here insisting on seeing Oliver. Should I? Before she could finish, Amanda stormed in, her face red with anger. How dare you? She hissed, waving her phone. Do you know what you've done? I was building something important. I stood up, putting myself between her and Oliver. Building what? A brand? A following? At my son's expense. I was raising awareness, she shot back. People were praying for him. No, I said calmly, they were buying your merchandise. While you were filming at home, I was here, holding his hand. That's the difference between real family and social media family. Amanda's face crumpled, but I noticed her hand twitch toward her phone. Probably to record this moment too. Don't, I warned. This isn't content, Amanda. This is my son's life. Oliver's monitor beeped softly behind us. For the first time, Amanda actually looked at him, not as a prop, but as a sick child. She started, but for once she had no words. The nurse cleared her throat. Oliver needs rest. If you have family drama, take it outside. Family drama. Was that what this was? No. It was about protecting my son from being used as a spectacle. Amanda turned and left, shoulders slumped in a way I had never seen before. I exhaled, turning back to Oliver. He had watched everything. Mom, he whispered. I'm glad you're my real family. I hugged him gently. Sometimes children say the simplest truths. Then another message from my mother-in-law. But this time, it was different. We need to talk. All of us. About what real family means. I looked at Oliver, peacefully drifting to sleep, and typed back one word. Yes. A week after Oliver left the hospital, we had a family meeting in our living room. Mark, Diana, Amanda, and I sat together, while Oliver rested upstairs with Emma, Grandpa Jim, the only one who had actually helped during Oliver's hospital stay, stayed with them. Diana spoke first. We need to talk about what happened at the hospital. Amanda jumped in. Yes, Sophie completely overreacted and ruined. Stop, Diana said sharply, making everyone go quiet. Amanda, for once, you're going to listen. I sat up straighter. Something was different about Diana. I saw the visitor logs, she continued. I saw your posts, the times you were actually there, and her voice shook a little. I saw the merchandise sales. Amanda shifted uncomfortably. Her phone lay face down beside her, a rare sight. You were making money from your nephew's illness, Diana said, her voice heavy with disappointment. While Sophie was living every mother's nightmare, you were building a brand. Mom, I was trying to help. Amanda protested. The awareness, the prayers. The money? Mark cut in. The followers? Tell me, Amanda, how much did you make from those hashtag prayers for liver t-shirts? Amanda's face turned red. She didn't answer. I did something too, Diana said. She pulled out her iPad and opened Facebook. There was a new post. An apology to my daughter-in-law. I was wrong. While Sophie was being the mother Oliver needed, I was blindly supporting a social media campaign that took advantage of his illness. True family isn't about likes and shares. It's about showing up. Sophie showed up. I didn't. I'm sorry. Tears filled my eyes. Diana reached for my hand. I've always been proud of Amanda's marketing skills, she admitted. But I forgot the difference between marketing and manipulation, between appearance and reality. Amanda stood suddenly. This isn't fair. I was just. Just what? I asked, my voice calm. Just using my son's illness for followers, just selling shirts with his name while he struggled to breathe. Tell me, Amanda, what were you just doing? For the first time, she seemed to understand. She sat back down, her confidence fading. I didn't think about it that way, she whispered. That's the problem, Mark said. You didn't think about Oliver at all. Just how this story could help you. A small sound from the doorway made us all turn. Oliver stood there in his pajamas, his inhaler in his hand. Grandpa Jim stood behind him, a hand on his shoulder. Aunt Amanda. Oliver's voice was small but steady. My friend Tommy at school saw your videos. He asked if you made money from me being sick. I didn't know what to say. Amanda's face crumpled. This time she wasn't crying for the camera. Oliver, I'm so sorry, she choked out. I was wrong. So wrong. Oliver walked over and hugged her. It's okay. But maybe next time you can just be my aunt. Without the camera. Amanda nodded, holding him tight. Over his shoulder she looked at me, her eyes full of real regret. I'll delete everything, she said. The posts, the merchandise site, all of it. And she hesitated. I'll donate the money to the hospital's pediatric asthma program. It was a start. That night, after everyone left and the kids were asleep, Mark and I sat on our porch swing, the same place where Amanda had once staged her worried aunt photo shoot. Think anything will change? I asked. Mark squeezed my hand. Mom's already different. And Amanda, well, she hasn't posted in hours, which might be a record. I laughed softly, then I grew serious. I just want Oliver to know what real family means. He does, Mark said. Because you show him every day. My phone buzzed. A text from Diana. Lunch tomorrow? Just us, no phones allowed. I smiled and typed back. I'd like that. Sometimes it takes a crisis to show what really matters. And sometimes love isn't found in perfect, filtered moments, but in the messy, unedited reality of real family. Upstairs, Oliver's breathing monitor beeped softly, but this time the sound didn't fill me with fear. It reminded me that we had gotten through this together. As a real family. At 3:47 p.m., I missed the first call. The second came at 3:52. By the third, my heart was pounding. I was in the middle of an important client meeting in Chicago when my daughter Emma's number kept appearing on my phone. Something felt wrong. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway, my hands shaking as I called back. But it wasn't Emma who answered, it was my mother. Her voice was weak, almost broken. Olivia, she said, something happened while you were away. My sister Lisa had been watching Emma while I was on this business trip. It was supposed to be simple. Emma would stay with my parents and Lisa would help out. We'd done this many times before. What happened? I asked, my mind racing. My mother hesitated before explaining. Lisa and Emma had argued. Lisa claimed Emma was being disrespectful. And then something I could barely believe. Lisa had kicked my 12-year-old daughter out of the house. Kicked out? I repeated, stunned. Lisa had driven Emma to a community center, dropped her off, and told her to call me. Emma was left alone, scared, with nowhere to go. Where is she now? I demanded. A social worker found her, my mother said. She's safe, but Lisa says. I cut her off. Put Emma on the phone. When Emma spoke, her voice was quiet but steady. I didn't do anything wrong, Mom, she said. Lisa got mad because I didn't want to help her clean her closet. She called me lazy and disrespectful. That didn't make sense. Emma was always responsible, always helpful. Something wasn't right. I needed to get home. Now. Without hesitation, I canceled the rest of my meetings. My boss didn't argue, he could tell this was serious. The flight home felt endless. Every second, I imagined my daughter alone and afraid. Lisa and I had never been close, but this was beyond anything I expected. Lisa had always been jealous, never outright, but in small ways. She resented my career, my independence, and most of all, my close bond with Emma. She had struggled in life while I had built stability for myself and my daughter. But abandoning a child, that was something I couldn't forgive. When I landed, I called the social worker, Margaret. Her voice was calm. "Emma is okay," she said. "She's strong, but she's hurt. She doesn't understand why her aunt did this." But I did. Lisa had always made little comments about my parenting, saying I was too soft. But this wasn't just words. This was cruelty. When I arrived at my parents' house, I saw Emma sitting quietly in the living room. She looked so small. I turned to my mother. "Tell me everything," I said firmly. As Emma started to talk, I realized this wasn't just about one argument. This was about family, boundaries, and what I refused to allow. Lisa had made a terrible mistake, and she was about to find out exactly what that meant. The living room felt charged with unspoken tension as Emma recounted her version of events. Her voice was steady, but I could see the hurt behind her eyes, the same look she'd get when someone had disappointed her deeply. "Aunt Lisa came over early that morning," Emma began. "She was reorganizing the closet in the guest room and asked me to help. I was doing my homework, but I told her I'd help after I finished my math assignment." My mother shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I could tell she was struggling with the guilt of having allowed this to happen. "She got angry," Emma continued, "said I was lazy and disrespectful. But I wasn't. I always help when someone asks me. She started saying mean things about how I'm spoiled, how I never do anything for anyone." The more Emma spoke, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't about a closet or chores. This was about Lisa's long-standing resentment toward me now being projected onto my daughter. "She told me to leave," Emma said quietly. "Said if I wasn't going to help, I wasn't welcome in the house." My mind was already 3 steps ahead. This wasn't just a moment of frustration. This was calculated emotional manipulation. I pulled out my phone and started recording our conversation. Emma looked at me, a question in her eyes. "Just in case," I whispered. Later that evening, after Emma was asleep, I made a series of calls. The first was to a family law attorney. The second was to my company's HR department. The third was to my sister's employer. Lisa worked as a middle management supervisor at a local marketing firm. She'd always been jealous of my career, constantly comparing herself to me. Now that comparison would cost her. The next morning, Lisa arrived at my parents' house, clearly expecting to explain herself. What she didn't expect was me waiting for her. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but razor sharp. Her confident swagger faltered. "About what?" "About you abandoning a 12-year-old child. About your behavior. About the fact that what you did is considered child endangerment." Lisa laughed, but it was a nervous sound. "You're overreacting." Emma was fine, the social worker. The social worker who found a minor alone and scared. The one who filed an official report. I watched the color drain from her face. I had documentation, statements from Emma, the social worker's report, text messages Lisa had sent revealing her pattern of behavior. "I've been gathering evidence, building a case. I've spoken with your employer," I continued. "They take a very dim view of employees who engage in child endangerment, especially those in management positions." Lisa's bravado crumbled. "You wouldn't." Watch me. The next few weeks were a strategic dismantling of Lisa's life. Not out of vengeance, but out of a clear message. Actions have consequences. Her employer launched an internal investigation. The family law attorney advised me on potential legal actions. I wasn't just protecting Emma. I was creating a barrier that would prevent Lisa from ever putting my daughter in danger again. What Lisa didn't understand was that this wasn't about punishment. This was about establishing boundaries. About showing Emma that she was valued, protected, and never to be treated as disposable. Emma was resilient. She threw herself into her studies, into her art, into our relationship. But I could see the impact of Lisa's actions. The slight hesitation when family gatherings were mentioned. The way she'd sometimes look uncertain when adults were discussing something. My parents were caught in the middle. They loved both their daughters, but they couldn't ignore the severity of Lisa's actions. She needs help, my mother said during one of our conversations. Professional help. I agreed, but help couldn't come at the expense of Emma's safety or emotional well-being. The turning point came unexpectedly. A letter from Lisa's therapist, recommended by her employer as part of her mandatory counseling after the investigation. I recognize now the pattern of behavior I've exhibited. The letter read, summarizing Lisa's therapeutic insights. My jealousy toward my sister, my resentment of her success, my inability to process my own failures, these were projected onto her child. It wasn't an apology. Not yet. But it was acknowledgement, a first step. Emma read the letter with me. Her response was simple but profound. People can change, right, Mom? She asked. Sometimes, I said, but change requires genuine effort and accountability. As we sat together, I realized this wasn't just about protecting Emma from Lisa. This was about teaching Emma how to set healthy boundaries, how to stand up for herself, how to love someone while also holding them accountable. The journey was far from over, but we were taking it together. To be continued. Would you like me to elaborate on any part of this segment? I focus on the aftermath of the betrayal, the strategic response, and the emotional journey of both mother and daughter. 6 months after the incident, our lives had settled into a new rhythm. Emma had joined a youth leadership program, her confidence growing with each passing week. The experience of standing up to her aunt had transformed her in ways I hadn't anticipated. One Saturday morning, an unexpected invitation arrived. A letter from Lisa requesting a meeting at a local coffee shop. Emma discovered it first, bringing it to me with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Do you want to go? I asked her, giving her complete control of the decision. She thought for a moment. Yes, Emma said finally. I want to hear what she has to say. The coffee shop was neutral ground. I watched carefully as Lisa approached our table, her usual bravado replaced by a nervous energy. She looked smaller somehow, less intimidating. Hi, she said quietly, her eyes first meeting Emma's, then mine. Emma spoke first, a trait she'd inherited from me. Direct, unafraid. Why did you do what you did? Lisa's hands trembled around her coffee cup. I was jealous, she admitted, of your mom's success, of how close you two are. I felt like I was always falling short. The raw honesty was unexpected. Emma listened, her face a careful mask of neutrality. Jealousy isn't an excuse for hurting a child, Emma said. The words were mine, but spoken in her voice. I watched the conversation unfold, ready to intervene but allowing Emma her moment. This was her healing, her confrontation. Lisa's therapy had clearly made an impact. She didn't argue, didn't make excuses. She listened. I'm trying to be better, Lisa said finally, not just for you but for myself. Emma looked at me, a silent conversation passing between us. I saw the moment she made her decision. I accept your apology, she said, but trust takes time. The weeks following that meeting were transformative. Lisa began making genuine efforts, small gestures, birthday cards, occasional texts checking on Emma's school projects. No grand declarations, just consistent, quiet attempts to rebuild. My parents watched carefully. They'd been torn during the initial conflict, now cautiously hopeful. At Emma's year-end school presentation, an unexpected guest arrived. Lisa, sitting quietly in the back, watching with pride. Emma noticed her, paused mid-presentation, then continued, a small smile playing on her lips. Later, she told me, I want her to be part of my life, but on my terms. The legal consequences for Lisa were significant but not destructive. A formal warning from her company, mandatory counseling, and a clear understanding that such behavior would never be tolerated again. What started as a moment of betrayal had become a lesson in accountability, healing, and the complex nature of family relationships. Emma's resilience amazed me. She didn't just survive the experience, she grew from it. The youth leadership program recognized her for a special award, celebrating her courage and emotional intelligence. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is set a boundary, her program director told her during the ceremony. As I watched my daughter accept her award, I realized we had transformed a moment of potential trauma into a powerful story of growth. Lisa wasn't completely forgiven, but she was given a chance, a carefully monitored, conditional chance to be part of our lives. Family isn't about perfect relationships, I told Emma later that evening. It's about respect, accountability, and the willingness to grow. She hugged me tight. We did this together, she whispered. And we had. The journey wasn't over, but we had found our way forward, together, stronger, unbroken. Would you like me to elaborate on any part of this final segment? I focused on resolution, healing, and the complex path to rebuilding trust within a family. One crisp autumn morning, just as I was getting ready for a client meeting, my phone rang. I answered calmly, but the moment I heard my mother's voice, I knew something was wrong. "Michael," she said carefully, "we need to talk about the house." My stomach tightened. This wasn't just any house, it was our family home, passed down for generations. I had spent my childhood there, baking apple pies with my grandmother, learning woodworking from my grandfather. That house was part of our history. "What about the house?" I asked, trying to stay calm. She hesitated, then the truth came out in a rush. My father's gambling had finally caught up with us. His debts had spiraled out of control, and in desperation, they had sold the one thing that was never meant to be touched, our home. "We had no choice," she said, her voice breaking. "The debt collectors were after us. Your father swore this would be the last time." I had heard that promise too many times before. My grandmother had left the house to me in her will, making it clear that it should stay in the family. But now, without even telling me, my parents had sold it. "How much?" I asked, my voice ice cold. The number she gave me made my blood freeze. They had sold it for far less than it was worth. And worse, the buyer was a real estate developer with ties to the casino owner. It wasn't just a bad decision, it was a scam. I spent the next few hours digging for information. As a forensic accountant, I knew how to find hidden truths. I called old family friends, checked property records, and spoke to my father's business contacts. The deeper I looked, the worse it got. My father had borrowed from everyone, friends, family, loan sharks. The debts were endless. But what hurt most was how easily they had let go of our family's legacy. I remembered my grandmother's words. Family isn't just about blood. It's about honor, about protecting what matters. By the end of the day, I had everything I needed. Bank records, loan agreements, property documents, every detail lined up, exposing a web of corruption. My parents thought I would be helpless. They were wrong. I stared at the file in front of me, already forming a plan. This wasn't just about getting the house back. It was about bringing down the people who had profited from my father's addiction. The casino, the developers, the loan sharks. As the sun set, I made my first call to a lawyer who specialized in financial crime. "I need your help," I said. "We're going to take them all down." The fight had just begun. The next 6 weeks became a masterclass in strategic preparation. My forensic accounting skills, typically used to unravel complex financial fraud for corporate clients, were now laser-focused on my personal mission. I discovered the real estate developer, Marcus Reynolds, wasn't just a random buyer. He was deeply connected with the local casino's ownership group. The house sale was part of a larger pattern of predatory practices targeting families with gambling-addicted members. My first move was subtle. I began gathering comprehensive documentation, not just about the house sale, but about every transaction, every loan, every suspicious financial movement connected to the casino and the developer. Laura, my contact at the state's financial crimes unit, became an unexpected ally. "This goes deeper than just your family's case," she told me during our third meeting. Her preliminary investigation revealed a systematic exploitation scheme targeting vulnerable families. "They've been doing this for years," Laura explained, spreading documents across the conference room table. "Gambling addicts get deep into debt, then these developers swoop in and purchase properties at ridiculous undervalued rates." Each piece of evidence was carefully documented. Bank transfers, loan agreements, property assessments. I assembled a case so meticulously that it would be impossible to dismiss. Meanwhile, I maintained a calm exterior with my parents. Short, polite conversations that revealed nothing of my true intentions. They believed I was still processing the loss of the family home, unaware of the storm brewing beneath my composed surface. My father, typically boastful about his supposed business acumen, didn't realize I was systematically dismantling his entire network of deception. Each conversation was a carefully choreographed dance, with me extracting information while revealing nothing. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. My father's former business partner, Robert. After years of being burned by my father's unreliable business practices, Robert was more than willing to provide testimony about the pattern of financial manipulation. Your father never could resist a bad bet, Robert told me over a carefully arranged lunch meeting. But this time he's gone too far. Robert provided crucial documentation showing how the casino owners had been systematically targeting families with gambling addictions, creating a predatory ecosystem of debt and property acquisition. By the 8th week, I had assembled a comprehensive dossier that was more than just a personal vendetta. This was evidence of a widespread criminal enterprise. My strategy wasn't just about recovering the house. It was about exposing an entire system of exploitation. I contacted an investigative journalist, Maria Rodriguez, who had a reputation for taking down corrupt local institutions. Her initial review of the documents confirmed what I had suspected. This was a story that could blow the entire operation wide open. They've been doing this for years, Maria confirmed. Preying on families, using gambling addiction as a weapon to strip people of their assets. The plan took shape with surgical precision. We would not just file a legal challenge to the house sale. We would create a comprehensive expose that would dismantle the entire network. My mother called periodically, her conversations increasingly nervous. They sensed something was coming but had no idea of the scale. "Are you okay, Michael?" she would ask, her voice tentative. "I'm fine," I would reply, my tone neutral. "Just handling some things." Each conversation was a carefully constructed facade, hiding the legal and investigative machinery I was setting in motion. The local authorities were brought in, not through an aggressive approach, but through a meticulously constructed case that they couldn't ignore. Financial Crimes Unit, Property Assessment Board, State Gambling Commission. Each was provided with irrefutable evidence. By the 10th week, the first domino was about to fall. Marcus Reynolds, the real estate developer, had no idea that his entire network was about to be systematically exposed. The casino owners who had been profiting from this scheme were equally unaware. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind: protect what matters, not just with anger, but with intelligence. I wasn't just seeking revenge. I was seeking justice, not just for my family, but for every family that had been similarly exploited. The final pieces were falling into place. The investigative report was ready. The legal challenges were prepared. The authorities were briefed. All that remained was to set everything in motion. My phone rang. It was Laura from the Financial Crimes Unit. "We're ready," she said. I looked out my office window, watching the city move beneath me. "So am I," I replied. The game was about to change. Permanently. The next morning, everything exploded simultaneously. Like a perfectly synchronized military operation, every aspect of our meticulously planned strategy went into motion. Maria Rodriguez's investigative piece hit the front page of the local newspaper. The headline screamed, "Casino Empire built on fake Chayan. Predatory practices exposed." Accompanying the article was a comprehensive breakdown of how the casino and real estate network had systematically targeted vulnerable families. Within hours, my phone started buzzing. First, Marcus Reynolds' lawyer called, desperate and panicked. Then the casino owners' representatives. Each call was a mixture of threats and bargaining, which I calmly deflected. "I'm not interested in negotiating," I said repeatedly. "Your actions will be fully investigated." The state's Financial Crimes Unit launched a full-scale investigation. Bank accounts were frozen. Properties were placed under temporary seizure. The network of corruption that had operated in broad daylight for years was suddenly exposed, vulnerable. My parents were summoned for questioning. The look of shock on their faces when they realized the depth of my investigation was something I would never forget. "How?" my father asked, his voice breaking. "How did you know?" I simply smiled. "I learned from the best," Grandma always said, to protect what matters. The legal proceedings moved quickly. The house sale was immediately invalidated. Not only would our family home be returned, but the developers were forced to pay significant restitution. But this was about more than just our house. Dozens of other families came forward, empowered by the investigation. Families who had been silently suffering, stripped of their assets by the same predatory system. My mother's initial anger transformed into a strange mixture of shame and reluctant admiration. "You've always been different," she said during one of our conversations. "More like my mother than I ever was." The casino's operating license was suspended pending a comprehensive review. The real estate developer's entire portfolio came under intense scrutiny. Marcus Reynolds was arrested, his network of corruption systematically dismantled. My father's gambling addiction became a central part of the investigation. Rehabilitation became a condition of avoiding more serious legal consequences. 6 months after that initial phone call, our family home was not just returned, it was restored. I used part of the settlement to renovate the property, bringing it back to the condition my grandparents would have wanted. During the renovation, I found something remarkable. Hidden in my grandfather's old workshop, behind a loose floorboard, was a small journal. His notes about building the house, about family, about integrity. One passage struck me particularly. A family is not defined by its mistakes, but by how it rises above them. The local community began recognizing the broader impact of the investigation. Other families who had been similarly exploited found hope. The casino's practices were exposed, creating legal precedents that would protect vulnerable individuals. My relationship with my parents transformed. It wasn't perfect, but it was more honest. My father entered a comprehensive gambling rehabilitation program. My mother started volunteering with support groups for families dealing with addiction. A year later, I sat on the porch of our restored family home. The afternoon sun cast long shadows, reminiscent of those summer days from my childhood. My grandmother's legacy wasn't just the house. It was the lesson of resilience, of strategic thinking, of protecting what truly matters. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was seeking justice, not just for my family, but for every family that had been exploited by a system designed to prey on vulnerability. The phone rang. It was Laura from the Financial Crimes Unit. "We've got another case," she said. "Think you might be interested in helping." I looked out over the property my grandparents had built, the home my strategy had reclaimed. "Send me the details," I replied. Some stories don't end. They simply transform. And some family legacies are worth fighting for.